It is Monday, August the 4th. Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only forecast through until Sunday. And we've got a few moving parts again this week. Typical weather for August. We've got big lows down around the Southern Ocean and a cold front here. Not an overly aggressive low pressure system, but just some low pressure with a cold front. That's why we're seeing this cluster of thunderstorms with the main cold front and more thundery sort of showers behind it as the temperatures drop. So that is moving eastwards. We will be seeing cloud and showers increase as that moves over towards Victoria and Tasmania, and also a temperature drop coming. But before that happens, milder winds are in the mix. There are a couple of showers around parts of New South Wales today, maybe coming into Queensland too. Fairly dry, but there is a southerly breeze here dragging in some cloud. Offshore low is the reason for that. Lord Howe Island on the edge of it, you might get a thunderstorm or a downpour, otherwise it is drifting away eastwards. Let's have a look at the situation, sort of paints it a little more clearly for you. So we've got high pressure out of the Indian Ocean coming into Western Australia and southern parts of Australia over the next couple of days. Low pressure coming in towards South Australia today and tomorrow. Not overly deep in air pressure, most of that stuff further down towards Antarctica. So that encourages a westerly wind between the low pressure and that high pressure belt as well. And then you jump over to the east coast, the low here producing southerlies, easterlies, northeasterlies. So it depends on where you are in New South Wales, but you've certainly got a variation of wind flows, calm inland, and then further out to the outback, you've got northwest winds coming through. So definitely some variety at the moment, and pretty quiet up in the tropics, at least at the moment. There may be some energy coming into Queensland as we go through the week. So let's have a look at Tuesday's setup. High pressure is moving into South Australia, coming out of Western Australia, and another big high out over the Indian Ocean. So that's all kind of connecting, but because we've got two centres of high pressure, there's a bit of a southerly here coming through into parts of southwest Western Australia. So there may still be a few showers, a couple of thunderstorms in the mix. Windy westerlies come through for areas into South Australia, mostly south of Adelaide, Kangaroo Island, for example, and down towards Mount Gambier coming into Victoria. You've got those westerlies pushing through Bass Strait. Again, it's not a major system, but it certainly is going to be windy in exposed areas around Tasmania in particular, where it is colder with those westerlies blowing through and some rain on the west coast. Elsewhere though, not a lot to talk about, but there may still be a couple of coastal showers, especially around New South Wales. On Wednesday, the high pushes further across the eastern side. It is centred now, we've got one sort of main centre to it over the Great Australian Bight. So we've got a couple of high pressure zones merged into one here. That still produces a couple of showers. Now it's not overly widespread, but you see these showers around South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. This is the cold stuff down here over Tasmania, just brushing those southern coastlines. And once more, further into New South Wales and Queensland, not much to talk about, quiet in the Northern Territory, except for a bit of an easterly breeze, and that same easterly pushes out into Western Australia where there are a few remaining showers, possibly a little bit heavy, but not generally expected to be too much to focus on. Now Thursday we start to see downpours inland around Ayers Rock, Uluru, up towards the Northern Territory, seeing a few afternoon showers or a few downpours or thunderstorms that form across the day. But it's dry, mostly up in the tropics here. Couple of showers for far north Queensland coming in as an easterly for you, and those showers maybe get a little bit heavier as you move further down the coastline and joins up into what's happening here in New South Wales. So as high pressure, quite a powerful one, tracks along to the south here, bringing colder weather to Victoria and Tasmania. Further up the coastline, it brings in easterlies and showers. So it's going to be a little cloudy and a little cooler for those of you on the coastline after a mild, dry start to the week for many spots. And by Friday, we are seeing the risk of some severe weather, severe thunderstorms forming inland for Queensland, mostly west of Charleville, but that could drift eastwards as well. So that's worth monitoring. It's not necessarily overly impressive, but it is showing up. And obviously those easterly winds all the way down to Sydney and southwards, pushing in to the entire eastern coastline. Where you see green, sort of from the Sunshine Coast, further down to about Port Macquarie, some of those areas might be seeing 10 millimetres. So these aren't big rainfall numbers, but it just shows there could be some heavier falls in the mix. High pressure though, the main feature here in the southeast, and jump over to Western Australia, check out the lightning tracker maybe on Friday. It could be quite active out at sea here with plenty of wet weather forming and a bit of low pressure moving in to the southern part of Western Australia. So that means we kick off Saturday with downpours, thunderstorms, isolated showers, or some, actually not necessarily isolated, but a line of some heavier showers moving through the southwest corner of Western Australia. The isolated showers are in the pale blue, so that does still cover quite a large area. And then ahead of that, northerly winds are picking up. That's pushing into South Australia, and we've still got convergence showing up here. Now, most of this is offshore. There's a new low forming off the coast of Queensland over the Coral Sea. That does spark some heavy rain in purple offshore. Now that's 100 millimeters on the map. So if it just drifts a little bit closer to land, that's why that's a concern. But otherwise, thunderstorms are popping up and downpours are popping up on Saturday around Queensland and around New South Wales. Easterly winds are blowing through. And so if you're around Port Macquarie northwards, that's where you got the higher chance of wet weather. Could be 30 millimeters or more falling in some of those New South Wales eastern locations. Much drier further to the west. Dry in Victoria for the most part, and pretty much dry in Tasmania. High pressure 1040, so a big powerful high right next to you, driving in a few easterly winds, a couple of showers as a result of that. And then we finish here on Sunday with that low that is still maybe getting better organized over the Coral Sea. This is what we talked about in our Climate Watch video that we've just done for the month of August, because there is chatter again about La Nina. So watch that video if you're more interested in that. It is worth noting, for all of last year, many people were talking about La Nina, and it never happened in our part of the world. But it's worth noting that these sorts of lows that are forming up here in the more subtropical areas, that's not quite so normal for this time of the year. And so that's why we're just monitoring to see, are we going to be going into La Nina later in the year that produces more lows like this around the tropical part of the Pacific. But for now, that is just a low offshore. Don't get too worried. And easterly winds carry on around New South Wales, like I say, with some of those heavy showers about. But northerly winds are developing for many other places. The next cold front just brushing Western Australia there on Sunday. So a bit of energy coming around, but not as much severe weather as we saw in the last few weeks. So we might be just going back into a slightly more settled period, but there are enough lows in the mix here, both northern ones and southern ones, to keep the weather map changing. And that's what we're seeing over the next week ahead. That's all from me. I'll be back again tomorrow, Tuesday, as we take a closer look at the severe weather risks moving in around Australia over the next week. I'll see you then.